Hey guys, this is NPC Naut with Not Gaming, and today we're going to be doing a China draft rating. So let's start right off with commons. So Calamity, how are we feeling about this card?
Card's really good. Lets you get a free trade for 2 mana, plus makes them skip their attack if you don't get the trade, and it cycles. It's probably a 3.5. I don't want to take more than 2, because you do need to have the creatures to make the trades, but card's really good.
Yeah, I actually don't think there's many cards better than this card. Stunning enemies is kind of broken in this game right now. It stops attacks. It makes it so you can kill free guys. And this card also recycles itself, so you just draw a card when you play it, which really makes this card insane. I'm going to give this card a 4. I think this card is insanely powerful in the commons.
Sure, I'm down with giving it a 4.
Alright. Next card.
Changi. Well, if you manage to store up a couple of Crescent Blades, then they're free forever, which is nice. So you can play her on 4 and drop Cold Blades, or you can play her on 7, use your hero power, drop 3 or 4 blades and just kill something. Granted, you've already invested a lot of mana at that point, but you are essentially getting a card for free. She has range, which is kind of nice, but she doesn't bring a lot of power to the board for 4 mana, and on 4 mana I really want to be taking board control of my creatures as much as possible. So maybe like a 2.5.
Yeah, I would even just go with 2. I do like this card as a 1-of sometimes in a lot of standard decks. There are a lot of times, even in draft, where you can get a lot of value out of this because you're going to be playing multiple spells in a single turn. That being said, 4 mana for a 1/4 is a pretty terrible rate, so her ability has to be effective. In the games where her ability isn't really doing much for you, she's just terrible.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Contemplation. Add 2 Clear Mind spells to your hand.
No, don't do it. Don't draft this card. Clear Mind spells literally do nothing. They cost 0 and they do nothing. They have some flavor text on them. They're there for you to trigger your other spellcasting effects like Guan Yu. But honestly, even if you draft Guan Yu, you don't need to draft Contemplation. I really just don't draft it. It's a 0.
I recently saw another streamer with double Guan Yu draft one of this card. I'm gonna say it was pretty good there.
Okay. If you have 2 Guan Yus, then you can draft Contemplation.
That being said, you have to have a lot of cards that are terrible to want to pick this over them in this deck. And you want to have a lot of the Imperial Archer, I believe, like the 1/3, for this ever really even be able to be okay. So
sure. If you have
even under those circumstances, I don't like it, but I can kind of understand it. I'm gonna give this card like a 1.5.
What?
Maybe.
That much?
Yeah.
I would draft Hive before I would draft this card.
No.
Yep.
Alright, next card. Crescent Blade.
Crescent Blade. This is not a real card. Don't draft this card. This is your hero power.
Evolve. Spawn a random beast.
Now that the Hi-Rez exist, this is better. But it's still not all that good. If you're drafting a Chinese beast synergy deck, then sometimes you just need as many beasts as you can possibly find, and then you take this when there aren't any other beast choices, and nothing above a 3, I guess. So it's not terrible, but if you're not drafting beasts, I probably don't want to take it, just because sometimes you spend 4 mana, you only get a 2 mana card, it shows up in a bad spot, it can't threaten the core. There's a lot of downsides to this card, and there are a couple of upsides, but they don't outweigh the downsides.
I'm not really a big fan of this card, but I do find that the fact that it's a spell actually makes this card better. If it was a random beast that transformed into another beast when it came into play, it'd be bad. But the fact that you actually can sometimes get activations out of it in this class makes it a little bit better. That being said, most of the beasts that aren't the Hi-Rez aren't worth 4 mana to start with. So you want to be hitting Chao Fang, Suku, and that kind of stuff. And often it's a common. You might even just have those as the pick. So you want to be picking the better creatures as opposed to getting a random card that says maybe you get them.
Yeah, basically. I'd probably give it a 2.
Yeah, I agree. Probably a solid 2. Hibu. Right now, I think there's actually a draft bug where you can't get this card in draft. There's a couple cards that have been bugged out recently in the last patch where you just stop seeing cards in draft. That being said, when you do see him, he's extremely powerful.
Hibo is really good. He's aggressively statted. So when he comes down for 3 and he bounces a guy, he gets to challenge the board as well.
Yeah.
The only time I really don't want to, or the only time I'm really worried about seeing Hibo in my deck is when I'm playing against Odin, because you can never have him anywhere except for the very back line behind your stone. Otherwise, the hero power will just trade with him. But bouncing a guy, especially like if you go first, you play your 2-drop, your opponent maybe like coins out a 3-drop, you play Hibo, bounce their 3-drop, suddenly you've got 2 guys on the board, your opponent's got nothing. Puts you in a very strong position. So Hibo's probably a 4.5.
Yeah, this is one of the few cards in the game, guys, where your opponent makes a big play for like 6 mana, say. You play a 3-mana card that just undoes their entire turn and still gives you more board presence. Yeah, this card's very easily like a 4.5. This card's insane.
I think what's the bounce spell in China? Not projection. We'll get to it. Displacement, maybe?
Jade Boon.
Meh. And
now this does trigger every turn and is an effect that's continual. That being said, I still don't think it's very good. The chances to get 2-for-1s are too often because you're not getting any toughness on the guy. So you want a guy who's pretty durable or already ranged to play this. And then on top of that, it's a card that you're doing to use this. I'm not a big fan. I'd give this card like a 1.5.
Yeah, I think 1. I think I would give it like a 1.
Alright.
It doesn't help you keep board control. Unless you put it on a range guy, maybe, and then wait some time.
Yeah.
It's really...
Most time your hero power is going to be the same thing over a couple turns anyway. Manifold Blade. Deal 1 damage and +1 additional damage for every beast in play. Friendly beast.
We have a 3.
Yeah, I think this card's pretty solid removal, guys. You know, with 2 beasts, this card does 3 very often. With anything that gives your spell power additional power, it's even more damage. So I like this card a lot. 1 mana, it's very cheap. You know, if you don't have a lot of beasts, drafting this card's pretty bad. But if you do have like 4 or 5 beasts, this can very well get the value out of it. I'm gonna give it a 3.
Even if you don't have that, yeah, even if you don't have that many beasts, it's still like 2 damage for 1 mana, which is Sunder, which is not that bad. And then like it can very easily become 3 damage for 1 mana, which is extremely powerful.
Yeah.
If it started out as 0 damage and got 1 damage for each beast you had, then it wouldn't be very good at all. But starting with 1 makes it definitely very pickable.
I mean, I'm not gonna pick this up unless I have a couple beasts for sure, though. Without the beasts, you're like basically getting Crescent Blade, which isn't that good. Projection. Select a friendly minion, deal its attack damage as damage to the enemy unit. This card's actually pretty insane. A lot of times you'll be able to have a creature that can just straight out kill your opponents if they were to fight. This lets you do this without losing your creature. At 3 mana, it's one of the biggest removal spells that can, you know, have a huge amount of damage. That being said, if you don't have a creature in play, this card does nothing for you. So, sometimes at 3 mana, it can be a little bit difficult to play this spell and another spell in the turn. So if you don't have a creature, playing a creature and then getting this to activate before your opponent challenges your creature could be tough. So if you're drafting a deck that has like a bunch of like Oogways and the stronger creatures in it, this card's insane.
Yeah, and sometimes you can even get things like a Scion of Doom buff on a guy, and then projection it onto something else, and then get the extra bonus again when you attack.
I mean, with like Imperial Guard, you're like blading things, making Imperial Guard bigger, and then you fire off projection. It's sweet.
Yep.
I'm gonna give
There's just a lot of stuff you can do.
I mean,
go ahead.
I don't think it's as good as like a Gift of Moonin, so I think I'm gonna probably go like 3.5, probably.
That sounds fine. There's definitely the downside of needing to have a creature, and you don't draw a card like Gift of Moonin, but you can do a lot more damage. Yep. So 3.5 seems fine.
Pummel. Deal 1 damage to an enemy unit and stun them.
I don't like this card. I think Calamity is just much, much better.
I mean, Calamity is clearly better, right? You're able to draw a card after doing the spell. That being said, I don't think Pummel is
Calamity can stun multiple units.
Terrible. But the fact you're only stunning 1 creature for 2 mana, you're doing 1 damage, it's really easy to weave that in. When it's a straight removal spell, it's not bad. When it's less than that, it's pretty terrible.
I probably would only give this a 2.
Yeah, I think 2 is very fair. Recall. Return a unit to the owner's hand. Now, this is the
Right,
worst
this one.
version of Hibu, obviously. At the same mana cost, it being a spell does have some good synergies with her, but I prefer the board presence, obviously. I don't think
You
having one of these in your deck is bad. I don't want to draft too many, though.
you can bounce your own dudes with this too. So like sometimes you have a Lernan Hydra and like it's got beat up a little bit, you bounce it back, play it again, and suddenly your opponent has to do 5 more attacks to your Hydra. There are some other uses you can do with it. Hebo only hits opponent's creatures, so you get a little bit less utility, but having the 2/1 is much, much better afterwards.
Yeah.
So I think recall's maybe like a 2.5. It is still a spot removal spell when you need it. Oh well, not really a removal spell so much as like a tempo spell. But if you're ahead on board, your opponent's trying to stabilize, you can stop them stabilize with this card for sure. So
Yeah.
it still has application even though it's not Hebo.
No, I agree. This card is. I think it's good. I would give it a 3. The Hindu version is obviously much better when you can do it twice in a row, but
Yeah,
it can easily win you
Krang's nuts.
games. Silence. Remove all passive abilities and spell effects from a unit or summoning stone. Another thing right now going on, guys, is Chaos Spawn is currently also not showing up in Arena for some reason, which makes the value of this card a lot better currently. I suspect they're going to fix that. As a card by itself, without counting that in, I think Silence is pretty good as like a one of. I don't want a lot of these in my deck because if you ever draw 2 of them in like your opener, your hand basically does nothing.
You're
So
probably losing that game.
that being said, when you need the silence effect, you need to have a silence effect in your deck. It gets the job done. I think it's probably like a 2 though.
Yeah, I think maybe even 2.5. You can also silence your own dudes to take off stuns. So, or I think you can remove poison from your own dudes too, but I'm not 100% on that. So again, multiple applications.
Poison is
There's a lot you can do with
silenceable,
this card.
yeah.
Yeah. So there are a lot of tricky plays you can make with it.
Transfusion. Set a unit's attack equal to its health.
I this card is so a lot of the cards in Hand of the Gods right now that have a lot of health and a small amount of attack that you want to use Transfusion on are really bad by themselves. Which means the only time Transfusion is good is when you combine it with a really bad card, which you don't want to be picking anyway. So this card's like kind of a trap to me. It like makes you want to pick Carrier Behemoth, and Carrier Behemoth is terrible.
Well, we have War
It makes
Behemoth,
you
right?
want
Which is pretty good in China right now.
yeah. But like you don't need War Behemoth to be a 6/6. You don't need to spend a card
No.
to make War Behemoth a 6/6. Being
I
a
agree with
3/6
you.
is already really good. So I think Transfusion is probably like a 1.5. I think someday when we have a broader card pool and you have like more of an application maybe with Transfusion, then it'll be better. But for right now, I don't think it really does enough. Particularly when you can't guarantee that a unit you want to buff is going to be in range of a unit you want to trade into that turn. Like in Hearthstone, I don't know if I should bring this up here.
Nah, probably not.
Okay.
The thing about this card, guys, is you want to be playing at the turn you're going to be making your attack with it so that your opponent doesn't like move around and avoid it from happening, which you can do in this game. So the thing about Transfusion is you want to be casting it and then immediately winning your trade. It's kind of difficult to do. There's better spells for it. I'd rather just have one of those.
Yeah, you can't guarantee that sort of thing here. So I give it like 1.5.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Arcane Conduit. 3 mana, your summoning stone now deals 2 damage to adjacent enemies whenever you play a spell. Silences are a real premium right now. Sometimes it's really difficult to even find a silence when you're drafting, which makes it so that if you don't have a lot of ranged units, this card basically can beat you by itself.
Yep, you're just not going to be able to get damage on your opponent's core.
With your hero power, you can literally do 3 damage to your opponent's any creature that steps onto it. With just that, when you start combining it with other spells or other creatures that buff your spell damage, it can get insane. That being said, spell immunity actually protects units from this. So that's kind of weird. Okay. Yeah. So if you have the spell immunity guy, it can be a way to get through this. But I do think this card is super good. Yeah, Gallus.
Okay, I too. Yeah, both of those. But yeah, this card's a house, and it can just stabilize you by itself while you like look through your deck for more answers and board presence.
Yeah,
for sure. I give it probably a 3.5.
Yeah, I think it's a 3.5. I don't think you want too many of these in your deck, just because they're kind of clutter and they're slow. But once you do get them online, they're very powerful. Celestial Guard. Give a friendly unit immune enemy spells.
If you have board superiority and you're worried about dying to a big AoE spell or something, this can definitely prevent that. You just chuck it on your big guy, and if they don't have dudes that they can contest on board, then it's basically impossible for them to deal with it.
Yeah, I have totally died to this card, being cast on a Chao Fang that had Tenacity. I had literally no way to remove it. There was nothing I could do.
Wait. How did they put Tenacity on a Chao Fang and have Celestial Guard? Those are two different pantheons.
Oh, no, not Tenacity. I don't know. It was the Boon card. The +1/+0.
Jade Boon?
Yeah.
Oh.
Sorry, it was getting bigger every turn. I couldn't remember. I thought it was Tenacity. That's right. So we ended up pretty dead to spell immunity.
Yeah, it can definitely get you. We didn't rate that card.
You have to have a creature that's worth using this on. I don't draft it very highly. Your opponent
can't trade into your creature and just 2 for 1 U, so probably like a 2.5. Like there are times when it's really good, but there are also times when it does absolutely nothing. So yeah.
Emperor's Prize. Draw a card for every friendly unit in play. I actually like this card, even in draft.
Me too.
2 mana to draw like upwards of 4 creatures. 4 cards sometimes is pretty insane. And even when you're just drawing 2, you're very happy with that. It's a spell, so it triggers a lot of your stuff. It helps you kind of get your combos in line and going. And it's not very hard to get off for multiple cards. So I like this card a lot. I'm gonna say 3.5.
I think so. Yeah, I don't want to have too many again, because you do need to find that balance between creatures and spells, especially in the Chinese deck, because you need to have things on the board. So I don't really want more than one of these, but 3.5 for sure for the first one, and then maybe like a 2.5 for the second one.
Invigorate.
I don't like this one as much.
Yeah, I think this one's kind of hard to like guarantee you're gonna have beasts in play to then use on a creature and give it more than +1/+1, right? Like this card at +1/+1 is pretty terrible. You really want it to be like +3/+3 at least to make this card playable. I'm gonna give this card a 1. I don't like to see it in draft. I wouldn't draft this card unless I'm sitting on like triple hyena.
Honestly, I even cut it from my constructed beast deck. Like, if you ever have more than 3 beasts in play, you're probably winning the game, and this card's not doing much for you. And if you don't, then it's not very good.
Yeah. A lot of times you'd rather just have something to contest the board, remove their guys.
Yeah, Hydra, anything. For constructed, anyway. Nisha. She trades up real well.
Yeah, I mean, if you play a spell this turn, she does, hits double damage. It's not actually an additional attack. I hate that it says that, because there are cards in this game that do additional attacks,
right,
and you can actually move them in between attacks, like Apollo. So this is not the same thing. This is just basically she just does double damage. So when you get buffs on her, it's really sweet. That being said, there's not many buffs that you really want to be playing. The Venator, it's kind of crazy.
But her health doesn't go up, unfortunately, and she doesn't have the Imperial Guard effect where she makes herself immune to counterattacks, so she is still... she usually gets like 1, maybe 2 attacks in with the double damage, so sometimes she kills like your opponent's Imperial Guard, your opponent's Ascensius, or something like that, and then like maybe gets a second attack in for 4 damage, but a lot of the time it's just she kind of functionally is a 4/4 for 3 once. Which is still fine.
Yeah, I mean, when you get to play this card unopposed, you do a lot of damage to your opponent's core very quickly.
Yeah, that you can do for sure. Yeah.
I like this card.
I'd probably give her like a 3.
Yeah, I think 3 is very fair.
I think solid middle of the road. Nothing amazing, but definitely worth the price as far as mana is concerned.
Yeah. Rushing Thunder.
Can be very good. Can help you set up.
I like having 1 or 2 of these in my draft, actually. There's a lot of times when creatures, that either, like Beset, for instance, don't want a bunch of, like, 1/1s. You have the ability to start making, like, Demon Bags sometimes. And Rushing Thunder will help you really charge those up nicely for a lot of damage later on in the game. That being said, it also works when you can double like spell damage on it. I love this card. I think it's good.
Also helps you get around stuff like Zombin Scout that your opponent might have. They're making an army of zombies, just wipe them out. It helps you get through like a Chow Fang if you need to get through it like right now and you only have one blade in hand. You can make another blade, Rushing Thunder, double blade it, get through the Chow Fang.
Does damage to
It's
core
just like
too.
a little bit of extra damage when you need it. It does damage to core too, but that doesn't really matter.
I think this card's like a 3.
Sure, yeah. She's fine.
Siphon Mind. Deal 2 damage to your enemy, summoning stone, and draw a card.
It makes your deck smaller.
It costs 2 mana. It does a cycle for 2 mana. A lot of times you're going to find a card in the rare slot that's at least reasonable to be playing that you want to have in your deck. This isn't that card.
Nah, I'm like looking for upsides pretty hard here. I'm not really seeing them too much.
Yeah,
I give it like a 1.5.
I think this is like a 1.5, yeah. Mr.
This
Demon
guy's
Bag himself.
So what the Demon Bag does is it's a 2-mana spell. When you play Zhang Kui, you get one in your hand. It does 0 damage. And then as long as Zhang Kui is alive, every time one of your opponent's creatures dies, the Demon Bag gets 1 more damage on it when you finally cast it. And it doesn't, if Zhang Kui dies, whatever your Demon Bag is doing for damage, that's where it'll stay. If you play a second Zhang Kui, your original Demon Bag can start getting buffed again. It's not tied to this particular card, or that particular instance of the card, rather. So if you draft multiple Zhang Kuis, they get better. Also, silencing Zhang Kui doesn't actually stop the Demon Bag from growing, so keep that in mind.
Yeah.
So for 4 mana, he's a 2/4 with range, which is a pretty solid stat line. It's not amazing, but it's definitely worthwhile. It can definitely he definitely helps stay alive while killing your opponent's dudes, which combos nicely with the Demon Bag. This guy can do a lot of work. And the Demon Bag can go core as well. So if you get like 5-6 damage on 2 of them, suddenly your opponent's just dead.
I had a game end where somebody decided to toss a 13 damage Demon Bag at me. We had Zombin Scout in play that was producing maximum value for my opponent, and I couldn't get rid of it fast enough.
Oh no.
It was pretty brutal. Yeah, he played it, Rushing Thunder, like you were saying earlier, and just literally we were just buried. The game ended pretty quickly. I wasn't ready for it to end that quickly. I hadn't really been counting the bag, but all of a sudden it hit me and I was just dead.
Yeah, definitely a good idea to keep track of how big your opponent's Demon Bags are.
Really?
You really do need to know. It can really inform your plays. I give Zhang Kui like a 4.
Yeah, 4.
Especially since in China it's so easy for them to remove your dudes just with their hero power and like whatever random things they have lying around. They can get a lot of value out of Demon Bag.
Yeah, I think he's an easy 4.
This guy's a 5. I think. I like. It's hard for me to think of an epic that I want more than Wukong.
Yeah, I mean, he's pretty nuts. He makes your hero power do 2 damage, which is really the main key here. If you've built up blades, getting ready for him to come down too, he gets even more nuts when you get the payoff on the next turn. When he's just like crunch, crunch, crunch. Rolling Thunder becomes Rain of Arrows that just targets your opponent. Let me tell you, it's a good card for 2 mana.
Yeah. Not only that, if you have like a Changi in play, the one that makes your spells free, say you play Wukong on like turn 8 or 9, you've saved up blades for a couple of turns, you can just wipe their entire board for 5 mana, essentially. Well, 5 mana that turn. You would have had to have made blades, to prep for it, but still, very powerful card, and the stats are good. Honestly, most of the time I just keep him on my back line anyway, even though he's a 4 or 5, I can go beat down on the core. I value keeping him alive more than I value the core damage most of the time.
Yeah,
because he will just win you the game if he stays in play for long enough. So I think this guy's an easy 5.
Gains repetitive advantage over and over and over again every turn. That you can use your hero power. He's just getting better. It's very hard for your opponent to kind of come back from this card without some kind of removal spell for him pretty much right away. And like I said, if you start saving blades before you play him a turn or 2, you gotta wipe the board basically for not much at all.
Yeah, he's like not quite as good as Guan Yu, but he almost is.
Yeah.
And Guan Yu's a legendary.
I'd give him like a 5.
Yeah.
Blade Forage.
Blade? Also really, really good.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna give this one a 4. The thing about Blade Forge, guys, is that this card comes down and has 4 health. It's very hard to remove. And then on top of that, it starts gaining value every single time you play a creature, making it really hard for your opponent to ever contest the board once this card's in play. So once it's in play, your opponent has a hard time removing it with creatures because they're all dead.
Also, good to note is that casting it counts as casting a spell. So, just important to know. It does matter sometimes. Like, you'll get your Imperial Archer trigger off of casting Blade Forge or your Imperial Guard trigger if you need it.
Which is really silly because it's technically not a structure on it. I think it's a spell that turns into a structure.
Yeah, it's a weird one.
But it doesn't show, like, yeah, it's just bizarre. It's kind of a weird interaction.
That
Hopefully
deploys a structure.
They'll clean that up a little bit. Or leave it the same, I don't know. This card's great.
Anyway, it's really good. This card's also really good. Turns out Mini Soul is still Mini Soul.
Yeah.
And Mini Soul is still really good.
Bad Broken Soul is still bad Broken Soul. And Soul happens to be so good it doesn't make a difference.
Well, she's actually getting patched now. She's getting patched right as we speak. So
the thing about this card, guys, is that China has less waves to buff its creatures up, so it's never going to be as good as Soul was. Strictly because you don't have Wind Demon, you don't have all their nonsense with it. That being said, he's still insane.
Dances. Yeah, he's still really good.
Yeah.
You can play him in the front if your opponent doesn't have anyone on board if you're on the play and they don't have a turn 2 or a turn 1 drop, and then he instantly challenges anything they play until they remove him.
China has some of the best epics in the game. I mean, we're looking at 3 epics in a row that you're going to pick over most neutral epics in the game.
Yeah. Basically just War Behemoth.
It'd be the only one that you'd really be considering, I think. And now we're into the legendaries.
This guy's good.
Dragon King is an excellent spell, guys. This can do 6 damage to the core if you want it to, which can end games on the spot sometimes. It gets very good value, just going down a line and killing 2-3 creatures. You can't really ask for much more at 6 mana.
Yeah, if your opponent doesn't play around it, you can really blow them out. One thing to note, and something that I didn't realize the first time I read this card, was that when it deals 3 damage to an enemy and then 3 damage to all enemies on the same row, the damage that it does to all enemies on the same row, it also does to the enemy you picked the first time. So it does 6 damage to one thing and 3 damage to everything else on the row. It's worded a little weird.
Yeah.
The first time I thought it was just 3 damage to a row, which is not nearly as good. But yeah, it can do 6 damage to core to finish off. It can clear a row. If you have any amount of board presence and your opponent's trying to contest, it can just push you right over the top. I think I give Dragon King probably a 4 on the legendary scale.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not picking it over like Guan Yu. I'm not picking it over like the Hydra.
Yeah.
And I'm probably picking Fire Giant over this card. That being said, there's not anything else I'm picking over it, really. So it's pretty nuts.
Yeah.
Guan Yu.
He's got to be a 5.
He's an easy 5. This card, if you have a Guan Yu in your deck, you're going to get free wins, basically. Every deck that has 2 of them should 12x, basically. He comes down, he's a repeatable removal every single turn. He's a 2/5, so mass removal doesn't kill him. Most targeted removal doesn't kill him. So he comes into play.
Basically, it's like Deicide is what you need to worry about.
Is impossible to kill, and then on top of that, gets a repeatable effect that you can play turn after turn. He makes all of your blades deal 2 damage to a target guy, and then 1 damage to everything else. This means no zombies, no Odin tokens, no Hindu structures. He just stomps out everything.
Yep.
He's even good dealing with Hydra.
The game. Yeah, he's even good at dealing with Hydra. Really. If you have 1 blade in hand before you play this card and your opponent has a Hydra, the Hydra just goes to 1 health. You just make another blade, hit him with 2 blades, takes 4 damage. Guan Yu really does the most that you could ask of a single card in this game, I think.
Yeah, no, he's insane.
The stats don't even matter at all. Oh, well, his attack stat doesn't matter at all, rather.
Now, speaking of another card that's insane, Sun Wukong is another card that's absolutely crazy. Really, his ability to give everybody double movement speed is very relevant in China, where you have a lot of those range guys playing in the back. All of a sudden, all your range guys...
The forms?
Hmm?
Should we go over the forms you can take quickly?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so the Warcry selected animal form has 3 choices, and you pick one, and he comes down with that effect. So one of the effects is the Eagle effect, I think, which is a one-shot that doubles all friendlies' movement speed, and then as long as those creatures are in play, they will have double movement speed as long as they're alive. So you can have one guy in the back line, place on Wukong, double movement speed, run him over, make a trade your opponent's not expecting. The second form is, I think, Ox form, which does 2 damage to everything next to all the enemies next to Sun Wukong when you play him, similar to Athena from Zeus. And then also Sun Wukong's attacks have knockback while he's alive after that. And then the third form is Tiger form, which gives him +2/+0. Certainly the least exciting form, the least outplay potential, but makes him an 8/7 for 6 mana, which is pretty powerful by itself. So if you don't need him to be doing any of the other forms, it's certainly very strong.
Yeah, I think the best form here, guys, is the movement form. You have so many guys sitting in the back that all of a sudden you double everybody's movement speed. You can go into the core for a huge amount of damage. You can go into their creatures that they weren't ready for all your range guys to be shooting at other melee guys to death. He does it all. I give him another 5.
Yeah.
I think he's slightly worse than Guan Yu, but I don't. I think he's as good as like. Yeah, I guess he's worse than the Hydra slightly too. I think 4.5. It's fair.
I would pick him over Poisonous Hydra, but after learning Hydra, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's China. Oh, they are actually getting 2 new cards that are being patched in right now. One of those is called Inferno. It's a spell. It costs 10 mana. It's a common. It deals 8 damage. That's the spell. You can send it to core. You can send it at a creature. You can send it wherever you want. I think it's probably really good in Arena.
I would
especially
imagine
if you're drafting beasts.
That card is crazy in Arena, right? You get a little bit of damage on the core.
You can definitely finish your opponent off there.
And you can just, here's 8 damage. Here's a third of your life. Die, please.
Yep.
What was the second card that they're adding?
The second card is called Daji. It's Chinese. It's a melee god. It costs 5 mana. It's a 5/5, and it's in the epic slot. And it has a war cry to give a beast +2/+2. If you're drafting beasts, this card's sweet. You get a 5/5 for 5, stays on the board, and then on top of that, you can buff one of your guys. So essentially, you're getting 7/7 worth of stats for 5 mana if you can make the buff stick. And 2 of the 2/2 of those stats are basically have charge. So it's even better.
He's really good.
I think there's a lot you're going to be able to do with it.
For when you're ready to move across the board, or you already have guys moving across the board, and you're just like buffing them. That being said, the direct comparison's like Venator, right? A 5/3 that does the same thing to any creature, not even just beasts. So
yeah, Venator's probably better.
He's worse than Venator, I think, but a 5/5 for 5 mana is very good value. And on top of that, if you get the trigger, he becomes nuts. So draft him after this. We will be giving him a rating at some point, but
3.5, I think.
I think 3.5 is probably pretty fair. Maybe even a 4. Depends on how many beasts you get in your deck.
I think Inferno, the 10 mana deal 8 damage, I'm probably gonna give like a 3, maybe a 3.5 for now.
All right, guys. So that is the Nuwa draft ratings guide.
Right.
So definitely check us out on Twitter at NPC or on Twitch Live at NPC_not on Twitch. Thank you. Have a great day.